This TFMR podcast is brought to you by your friends at JM Bullion. Visit jmbullion.com for all your gold and silver bullion needs. Welcome back to your TF Metals Report podcast highlights for the week that began on Halloween, October 31st, and ended as the first week of November. It was a volatile week, and we knew it would be with the next FOMC meeting and the conclusion on Friday bringing the latest jobs report in the U.S. Those are always volatile as well. So there was going to be a lot to discuss, and we cover a lot of things every day on TF Metals Report with a post in the morning and a podcast every afternoon. These are just small little snippets of what we discuss each day. And on Monday, Halloween, we were talking about the dollar index. It looked like it was possibly breaking down last week, but it never fell any further than it has in previous times when it pulled back during this bull run. So having it move back above its 50-day moving average was not surprising. Now the question is, where will it go from here? And that was a topic on October 31st. Dollar, again, bouncing from its 50-day. You've seen me show you this chart that goes all the way back to June of last year, coming up on a year and a half. Once it broke above the 50-day, it's been moving up and riding the 50-day higher, bouncing from it every single time that it made a new high. Well, looks like it just successfully bounced again, back above the 50-day today. So are we going to go up, test the upper band of this little channel I've drawn here, which would be up to 113.5 by later this week? Well, let's see what the Fed does. What if it blasts now and makes a new high, right? Look back in this chart. I mean, it got to 109 in the middle of July, came down, fell below the 50-day 4 weeks later, and then went to 111. So what if now we fell below the 50? What if we're going to 116, 117? Well, that ought to be a dollar crisis, I would think. Lots of the regulars at TF Metals Report own mining shares. I own some myself, so we keep a pretty close eye on them. And as you know, the last 6 months have been a pretty tough period of time for them, but they'll turn and bottom at some point. And maybe we're at that point now. There's an interesting chart feature developing, and price looks to be stabilizing in the GDX, the big gold mining ETF. That was one of the topics on Tuesday, November the 1st. GDX, here's that little wedge, little pennant, whatever you want to call it, that we started tracking a couple of weeks ago. GDX also holding above its 50-day. Again, if it can break out of this little wedge, then you start to feel like, okay, yeah, looks like the worst is over. But it needs to break up and out through the red upper boundary before we can say that. And you can see this in the GDXJ as well. The charts are almost identical. I've been away from my office all week, so on Wednesday there was not a podcast at TF Metals Report. And of course, Wednesday was the day we had the big Fed meeting, big rally on what we call the Fed lines, the initial release, and then a sharp reversal and rug pull from Jerry Powell when he began his press conference. Gold and silver rallied as the dollar fell, and then as the dollar rallied back, gold and silver fell. Then on Thursday, we returned to note what a great reversal in the precious metals. Silver had traded as low as $18.80 before reversing, getting back above its 50-day moving average, and looking like it might want to head higher with another short squeeze. That was one of the things we discussed on Thursday, November 3rd. Silver's telling us that's their lows are in, so why wouldn't gold's low be in? But for now, it's continuing to hold this 1620. If it can rally and get above 1680 in the 50-day, then we'll feel that the base is maybe being built. But for now, we still got to be alert for a drop below 1620 that could run some stops. And then finally to silver, which just continues to look stable and consolidating at 1950. Hell, it was 1950 in early July. And now here we are in early November. So it's at least holding in there. Again, pressing up off its lows, a little trend off the lows, that blue arrow, holding above its 50-day and closing above its 50-day for what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days now, which is a new personal best, right? It was 8 days back there in the middle of September. So watch silver tomorrow. Like I said, it's up on the week. The weekly candle's going to be green if it can stay green tomorrow. But all of this is obviously going to hinge off that BLSBS, and we'll just see how that goes. And on Friday, November the 4th, the U.S. dollar index fell sharply on the back of another totally bogus U.S. jobs report. This allowed the precious metals to surge higher, with silver posting its highest weekly close since the end of June. Looking pretty good. Now it needs a weekly close above 21, and we may get that next week. But for now, what we're seeing is the fourth sharp short squeeze in the last 3 months. Those hedge funds that keep getting short just keep getting fleeced by the banks that are now long. How about that? So ahead into next week, it's going to be a volatile week with the U.S. midterm elections and then the next CPI inflation update coming on Thursday. We'll see where the metals can go from here. They're going to turn eventually. They may be turning now, but we'll find out more next week. So please come back and join us next Friday for another one of these TF Metals Report podcast updates. Have a great weekend, everyone.